If you watched my introductory video, you may have noticed that one of the topics I touched upon briefly was the things that I like. And it's a long list, because I like a lot of things. It tends to come easily to me, liking things, and seeing the good in things rather than the bad. Even the things, or perhaps especially the things, that people tend to either love or hate, or that get a lot of critics. Like, say, the first Assassin's Creed game, or the latest Game of Thrones novel. I'm sure that a lot of you as well like things. Maybe even really like things, like with a passion. Whether it's a book or a movie or a video game or what have you, everyone has a few things they really enjoy. I'd like to think that the people who enjoy things more and like a lot of stuff are generally going to be happier than the people who always are finding something to complain about. But of course, one of the downsides to liking a lot of things is that you will inevitably run into people who don't like the things that you do. And when you run into people like this, especially if they're very verbal and outspoken about their dislike for the things you care about, and especially if you care about those things very intensely, you may walk away from that experience feeling very annoyed and possibly homicidal. And those experiences can be extremely frustrating, but it's important to remember some of the reasons that people might be reacting that way to the thing in question. Maybe they're just misinformed, or they've built up some kind of preconceived notion in their head from the impressions they've got about the thing. Like, for example, before watching the show Supernatural, all I really knew about it was that there were lots of ghosts and monsters and demons, and apparently quite a bit of homoerotic subtext. The first part was true, the latter part not so much, but that's the impression that I had been given by the fans. Another common occurrence is that people will judge things unfairly based on the impression they get at first glance. This is called judging a book by its cover, basically. Now, this isn't very fair, but it's a really common occurrence, like pretty much everyone does this at some point. For example, when I was younger, I pretty much refused to watch the show Buffy the Vampire Slayer because I thought it had a stupid sounding name and therefore must be stupid itself. I was very young and foolish, of course, you must keep this in mind. Eventually I watched Buffy and I realized how terribly wrong my initial impression had been, but it was still a really easy mistake to make. Or perhaps someone refuses to give The Fault in Our Stars a fair shake and actually attempt to read it because they think that they're allergic to young adult fiction, teen romance, or books about cancer. Now that's not at all fair, but it happens a lot. Or maybe someone just really doesn't like the genre or the style of the thing in question. Like, for example, if someone really hates science fiction in all of its forms, then no matter how much you try and persuade them, they may never appreciate Battlestar Galactica the way you do. It's unfortunate, but there's not really much you can do. So what can you do when you're faced with this kind of person? You can maybe start by not pestering them too much about it. I found that there's an interesting psychological phenomenon where the more you try and talk up how great something is to someone, the less inclined they are to actually give it a try. So if you go on ranting and raving about how awesome this movie is, and you absolutely have to see this movie, you don't understand, oh my god, they will probably start resenting the very mention of it. There's a little saying I like, which you may have heard, that goes, "It's okay to not like things, but don't be a dick about it." Which basically means that you shouldn't be rude to people who like the things that you don't like. But it's important to remember that it also works the other way around. Don't be rude to people who don't like the things that you do. Despite the annoyances which sometimes come with being a full-time liker of things, I think it's important to enjoy things as widely and intensely as you can. I would encourage all of you to go out and find new things to like and then fall in love with them. And it is a little bit like falling in love, being a fan of something. It includes all of the same steps. The initial discovery, the growing obsession, and of course, the inevitable moment where it takes your heart and rips it into 1,000 sopping tiny little pieces.
Why do they always kill my favorite characters?
He was a leaf on the wind. Cheer. Thank you for watching. Da -da -na 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 -na.